Welcome to Anneliese's Mixed Media Series for Beginners. Come on in, sit down, relax, and enjoy this series. And thanks for watching. Hi everyone, it's Ann, and I'm back for the Anneliese's Mixed Media Art Journaling class for beginners. And I have gone ahead, we're going to work on the cover this week. So I hope that you've gathered all your supplies, you've prepped your composition book, and we're going to get started. And you don't have to go out and buy exactly what I'm using. You don't have to use exactly what I'm using. What I'm trying to teach you to do is to let go, free yourself, free your mind for creating. And yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to get started. So what I do with my composition cover is I've got an old emery board that I think I got this at the dollar store. And I just go ahead and roughen up the cover. Okay. And then I take a baby wipe. And I did forget to mention that I strongly suggest you get yourself some baby wipes. They're great to wipe off things, while you're working, as well as your hands, wipe off your hands from things, that kind of thing. It helps with that. So my recommendation is you go out and get yourself some baby wipes, right, if you haven't already done so. Next, I'm going to get started, and I'm going to use some matte medium. It's the Deco Page, Americana Deco Page matte medium that I like to use, and it's not sticky. It doesn't make your pages stick like Mod Podge does. And I think this is it. I'm not sure. No, I think this is it right here, the matte medium. I've got several of these, and all my labels came off of them, so I don't know what happened, but I believe this is it here, the matte medium. I also have antique medium, but this tends to be a little bit more sticky. It's great for using the yellowing effect for that, but we're not going for that right now. So I like to take security envelopes. Okay, sometimes I still get some bills in the mail, and we do everything electronically now, so whenever I get security envelopes, even from junk mail, sometimes you'll get security envelopes. I like the designs on the inside. See how some of them are a little bit different than others. I'm not using the ones with the windows today. So what I do is I take it apart, and then I cut or tear, depending on the mood I'm in, off the page, sections that I want to use, basically, is what I'm trying to tell you. So these are the pieces I'm going to use today, and I'm probably going to rip them up and then glue them for my background. All right? Now, you don't have to use what I'm using. You can go ahead and, if you've got scrapbooking paper, use scrapbooking paper, that kind of thing. Now, if you're wondering, okay, well, I'd like to use security envelopes, but I don't know where to get them. Okay, so I usually get them at the dollar store. Believe it or not, the dollar store does sell them in their area where they kind of sell all the stationery stuff and padded envelopes, that kind of thing. So yeah, and unfortunately my brush wasn't clean and it had some yellow paint left over. See, like I said in the supply video that I did last week, don't go out and buy yourself fancy schmancy brushes, because if you're going to be rough with them, it's not worth the money. So, and I tend to forget to take my brushes and put them, I forget to take them out of the water and change the water and that kind of thing. Sometimes they stay in there for days, and you're not supposed to do that with your brushes, but yeah. So what I do is, once I've adhered a piece, I take my credit card or gift card or whatever, and I go ahead and I smooth it out so it doesn't bubble up as much. Okay, sometimes they will still tend to kind of bubble up a little bit. And I'm just coming in and I'm just adding different pieces of the security envelope to this. Now, sometimes I will prep more my cover with like gesso, but today I decided not to do that. Sometimes if I don't want the cover showing through, like if my pages aren't as see-through, then I don't worry about the gesso. But if they're a little bit more see-through and I don't want my composition cover to show through, then I will gesso. And the gesso that I normally buy, and believe it or not, I get it at Walmart, and it's really not expensive. It's made by De La Rowney. It's acrylic gesso, works really well, and you can. It's a big bottle like this, and I think I paid like $6 or $7 for it, which is a really good price. There's another suggestion: is if you go to a home improvement store and you look in their department, you can get a big, gallon size paint can of the flat paint. Just flat, cheapest paint you can find. That also makes a really good gesso. So if you're not, out to spend a whole lot of money and you're trying to find ways of cutting corners, I recommend that. And a lot of times, if you look at your Sunday paper, if you still get the Sunday paper, you can find sometimes coupons for home improvement stores. And that's a great way of saving a little bit of money and buying paint that way. The white paint, flat paint, if you wanted to get something with a lot of, you use gesso a lot and you don't want to spend an arm and a leg on it, flat paint will work. So I'm just going to quickly go ahead and speed up through this as I finish adding papers to my background, all right? So enjoy my process. And it doesn't really matter what direction you're doing these in at all. It really doesn't matter. And if you don't want to use, or you don't have security envelopes, like I said, you can use scrapbooking paper. You could use old maps for your backgrounds, okay? And where I'm going with this is we're going to create our cover, and we're going to create a title for our cover. And yeah, and then we're going to make all kinds of marks and things on our cover. So if you're wondering where I'm going with this, that's where I'm going. I often like to start my backgrounds with papers because it kind of strengthens up the paper I'm using. And it does add an interesting background, adds a little bit of texture to my background as well, kind of builds up the piece. Alright, so I've got the Deco Art Traditions Artist Acrylic Paint, but you can use craft paint or, you know, any type of acrylic paint that's on sale you can get. Alright, so if you don't have enough acrylic paints, don't worry about it for today, okay? Just use what you have, alright? This is a raw sienna that I'm using. It's kind of got a yellowish look, kind of a tan kind of look to it. So I'm going to just add a few little dots of it in different places. Then I'm going to take my credit card or gift card, whatever you have, and I'm going to scrape the paint using that. I kind of like the scraped look because I still can kind of see my background showing through, but it still kind of pushes the background back a little bit so it doesn't look as busy. Okay. Alright, so this is where I like to have some fun making marks and things in my background. So I'm going to show you a few things that I like using for backgrounds. And so some of them are, if you go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or any of the craft type stores, you can get these foam beads. They're kind of thick. And what I do is I cut out cardboard for their backing. Right, and then I glue them on using Elmer's glue will work, any kind of craft glue. I usually like to use the Aleene's tacky glue, and I usually get this using a coupon, or if it's on sale I'll pick it up. Sometimes the dollar store actually sells them. I'll show you the bottles that they look like. They're the small bottles of the tacky glue, and I like buying the small ones for when I go on trips, and it's only $1, so can't beat that. So anyways, and then I also like to use bubble wrap, but this is actually from an old solar cover from my old house when we had a pool, and I've kept some pieces of this. Any type of rolls, like this came off of a tape dispenser roll kind of thing to make marks with. I've got a sponge that's like a circle sponge. I think Gina Aaron sent me this in some happy mail. This was to the end of a tube, you know, those big tubes that you get to roll, like, you know, posters or whatever in. This is the end of it, and so I use that to make marks, as well as, remember I said to keep your tape dispensers or whatever, the tape, whatever's left over of your tape. These make great marking tools as well, dipping them in paint. You know, so just think outside the box of things that you could use. Now this is a piece of cardboard that I tore off the outer part, so we get to the corrugated part. This also makes really good marks. Let's see, this was a piece to a puzzle, and it makes pretty cool marks as well. So think about what you can use for marks. And then this was part of a set I bought online, I think. I can't remember where I got it. And it's like a roller marking tool thing. It's for children, but it works great for making marks as well. So there's all kinds of ways of making marks. And today we're going to use our household items, things that you find around the house to make our marks, or if you have any foam beads or anything made of foam, you could create a stamp out of that as well. All right, so think about what you can do. And this is another really cool way of creating mark making tools. This is yarn that I rolled around, wrapped around, and glued onto a piece of cardboard. So we'll see how that's going to turn out with that one. So I've got all kinds of little mark making tools. This was, I don't know where, somebody sent me a piece of this. It's like foam, but it's like embossed almost. And I think it might have been part of one of those, you know, hot mitts that are made out of silicone or foam now that you can get. You can cut these up into little pieces and create a mark making tool as well. Okay. And here's a lid to something. It's a perfect circle, so you could use something like that as well. So those are some tips. Another thing, if you don't have a palette, you know, or something to lay your paint down, you know, and you're worried about, you know, how you're going to get your paint onto something, how you're going to dip your paint, the dollar store again sells, you know, the flimsy paper plates. These are great for using as a palette. If you're not saving your paint, this is just a great way, and you could even save the palette and use it, reuse it as a background pieces by tearing it up. And we'll get to that later. All right, so I hope that you enjoy my process and enjoy the mark making. And just think about where you're going to put your marks, you know, if they're balanced, you know, kind of balance them out on your page. You know, just think about where you want to put your marks and what colors you want to use. All right, so I'm going to start using some paints, and I'll be right back while I gather them. So I'm going to use an aquamarine color. I'm going to squeeze some onto my palette, and I'm just going to start figuring out where I want to make my marks. Now, when you dip your, you know, your thing in your, you know, whatever you're going to stamp or use in your paint, the way to kind of remove some of the excess is to kind of, you know, have an area where you can stamp off the excess and then come in and stamp again. So you don't want too much paint on it either. We'll see how that worked. It worked okay. I mean, it wasn't completely perfect, but hey, you know. So try again. You could actually use a brayer, and I'll show what that means, what that is, to roll your paint on. So here's a brayer, okay, and I think I got this one at Michael's at some point a long time ago. So what you do is you roll your brayer through the paint, and then you roll it onto your mark making tool. Okay, make sure you get enough paint on there so that when you do go to mark, you know, make your mark, that it's going to, the paint will come off of it and stick to the area that you're gonna, yeah, that one worked out a lot better. Okay, so some of these, rather than dipping into the paint, use a brayer to get that, to get paint evenly, you know, evenly distributed onto the stamp or whatever mark making tool you're making, you know, you're using, and that way, yeah, it works out a lot better that way. Or you can dip in, you know. It's called experimenting too, because with mixed media, the only way you're going to really learn is through experimentation. Okay. So I'm going to come in and dip. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing again. And I like to use a heat gun to speed things up for my, you know, this is one thing I didn't mention when I added supplies, but if you don't have a heat gun and you have a blow dryer will work to dry it off, or just wait in between your layers to till they dry and come back. Take a break and come back if you don't have a hair dryer or a. So the next thing I'm going to do is I kind of got some of my marks going, but I'm not quite done yet, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take some gesso this time. You're going to go, what? What is she doing now? You'll see. So I'm just going to see first if this is in here. Okay. I'm going to first go ahead and just add a little bit of gesso, okay, to the middle area here. There's a reason behind my madness. And it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Just add it in this area because you can come back and re-stamp and stuff too. Okay, so don't worry that I've covered up an area, okay? No big deal. It's almost like I'm painting in a piece of paper, okay? Think of it that way. Okay. And then I'm going to dry it and I'll be back. All right, so we're going to start drawing a face, okay? And I'm using a B. Sometimes I like using 2B or B, just a B pencil, B grade graphite pencil. Basically B is like a softer pencil, where an HB is a hard graphite, which won't smudge or smear. If you don't want smudges or smears of your graphite, then get yourself an HB size. This is a Staedtler pencil. Even just a regular pencil right now will work. You don't need anything fancy, like I said before. All right, unless you really want to try some and you really want to spend the money, go ahead. All right. Okay. So I'm going to start with an oval, kind of an oval shaped face, and you can fix this later. And the softer the graphite, the easier it is to erase versus a harder graphite. So like an HB would be hard graphite that doesn't smudge or smear very much. Then I'm going to draw the lines. You'll see me draw lots of lines like this. Okay, so kind of eyeball where you want the eyes to be, the nose, kind of where the mouth is. Okay, and you don't have to be. It doesn't have to be realistic. All right. Some of us like to be more realistic drawers than others, and I'm really not. I'm kind of in between. I'm kind of more cartoony-like than realistic. All right, so then I'm going to start. I like to start with a middle oval here in the middle, because I like to, usually when you do your measuring, you want ovals on either side. Those are going to be your eyes, but you need kind of one eye width between the two eyes. So I like to do my oval here, an oval here approximately, and then my nose is going to be here, my mouth's going to be there. All right, so then I'm going to start drawing, and then I will show you the ways and tips of doing this, okay? So I got to get an eraser first for this. Eraser. So I'm going to erase the middle circle now, the middle oval. Okay, and the line in the middle of the eye. And you can shape it, your eye, like an eye. Okay, it doesn't have to look perfect. Okay, it can look kind of sketchy if you want it to. I'm drawing the lid. And since this is our first drawing, I'm not, going to be too specific in how to make it. Okay. So I'm making kind of a U for the eyeball, the letter U. Okay, and then a smaller like U for the pupil and the And you just kind of have to work at the eyes a little bit. Draw them both at the same time so they don't look so off. But, because it's sort of freehand, nobody's eyes are perfectly symmetrical. They're not perfectly the same size. If you look at people close up, you will notice that one eye might be a little slightly smaller than the other. You know, the Mo's may not be perfectly in the middle of the face. I mean, we all have our different quirks about us on our faces, okay? And next is the nose. Noses are not my forte. It's lots of practice to draw the nose. And then I've got the mouth, and I'm going to erase the lines that I used to kind of give me my guesstimate of where I put them. And then there's this funky dip that we have in our face. Kind of looks kind of like that. And that's kind of like where the start of your lips start at. You just kind of have to keep practicing and practicing with faces. And you might have to erase a lot till you get it the way you want it, okay? Kind of like that. And let's not forget the eyebrows. Then you could come in and either whiten the face a little more if you wanted to, and kind of give it more of a shape, you know, not so oval looking. You can come in and add like cheekbones more and more of a pointy chin. Doesn't have to be exactly, you know, perfect. So next I'm going to come in, I'm going to use the Portfolio oil pastels that I showed you how I mentioned in my list. And yeah. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to start out with, this is the peach tone, and I'm going to use golden brown and white to start. Alright, so I'm going to start with the peach tone all over the face, and I'm going to show you how to smooth these out. Now you could wet these if you wanted to, or you could come in and use them dry, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use them dry, and I like these because they're really creamy. Very creamy. So just come in and, you know, add color like you're coloring in a coloring book. Now, if you don't have these stub thingies, okay, they're called tortillons. You can find them at Michael's or Hobby Lobby in their, you know, wherever they sell pencils. You'll find these in a package. All right. If you don't have these, okay, because you can use these to blend, and these are great for graphite pencils as well. Okay. If you don't have that, and because these are really smooth and soft, you can actually come in with your finger. And you might pick up some of the graphite, and that's okay because that actually adds some natural shadows to your picture, to your face. You can add some shadow, okay? And then you can come back in with highlights. So it's not a big deal if it smudges the graphite. And if you don't like that effect, just get a harder, you know, use a HB pencil. Okay. Then I'm going to come in with some of the goldenrod, and I'm going to go around the areas where I think I'm going to have some shading, some shadow, add a little more color. Okay, and I forgot to draw the neck. So you can draw your neck. And do your neck. And I'm going to use my tortillon now to kind of go in and on the edges here. And there's different sizes for these, and another way, if you're worried about, say I use this with something else and you're worried about it, you know, getting on your thing, you can take a nail file, or there's actually a sandpaper pad that usually the sets come with. This is what it looks like, and you can go ahead and basically get what's on your tortillon off by sanding off some of the paper on the ends. And I will put hair on her in a little bit, okay? Okay, this is medium brown. Come in and do some of the eyelids here. I'm coming in with some white to add a little bit of highlights to my page, to my face. Oops. Looks like I got like a, yeah, I did. Came right off. There you go. And I'm kind of giving it sort of a painterly look to this, so it doesn't have to be perfectly looking, okay? Alright, so I've got my Stabilo All pencil. If you don't have a Stabilo All pencil, you can use a regular, just, you know, regular black pencil. But what I like about the Stabilo Alls is that they go right over other media. And I even have a brown Stabilo All that I could come in and add more color to my eyes here like that. And sometimes if you mark, if you go ahead and you accidentally cover something up, you can come back in with a pencil and redefine the lines. And it's very pink right now, but that's okay. Don't worry, don't freak out. Sometimes I prefer to use my fingers as opposed to my tortillon or paint brush or whatever. You just kind of have to keep working at it because it might take a while with all the layers. Alright, so I'm going to use a little bit on the pink on the insides of the eyes. we kind of have little lines in our eyes that are part of our pupils, the irises of our eyes. So I'm going in and I'm adding those little lines before I add the color of my eyes. Okay. All right. So like I said before, you don't have to go out and buy expensive art supplies. Sharpies work really well. Just make sure that your what you're using over it, when you go over the, whatever you're going over doesn't have any waxy stuff. So like, for instance, we did use oil pastels. So wherever you put the oil pastels, do not put a Sharpie over it or you'll ruin your Sharpie, okay? But I'm going to use it in the inside of the eye. I'm going to add color to it, okay? And I'm going to give her blue eyes. So when the light's hitting, depending on which direction, one area is going to be of your eyes are going to be slightly darker, depending on where the light is hitting. So usually go to about the middle there. And you want to do the opposite like this. About there. Kind of like a C, like a backward C. And you're going to do the same thing on this side with a lighter color. And you can always come back and outline parts of your eyes. And you can also outline the nose here a little bit. Using your Stabilo All pencil. Like I said, if you don't have a Stabilo All pencil, a colored pencil will work. Now I'm going to come in and add the highlights on the eyes, okay? Cheeks. Right in there a little bit, and then you can come back in with some more oil pastels to not make that highlight on the lip look so pronounced. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to draw my hair. I'm going to use a Stabilo All pencil to kind of sketch in my hair, and then you'll see what I'll do next with that. giving her some big hair. Okay. So I kind of got an idea of how where I want my hair. Okay. Like I said, it's very sketchy looking, kind of painterly looking, and that's okay. That dry. I'll come back in and do a little more there after. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry and I'll be back. We're going to work on the hair next, and then I'll finish doing the touching up of the face, but pretty much it's going to be kind of painterly looking. It's not going to be, you know, doesn't have to look perfect. Okay. And then I'll show you how you will make your Posca pens, and all of this is water soluble, so if you get it wet it can smudge and smear. So I'll show you what to do next on how to make these all permanent. Okay, so you can either use a fixative or you can use hairspray, and I'll explain that when we get to that point. So I have this chalk paint, and it's chalk paint, and it's kind of a matte finish, so it kind of gives it almost, you know, basically a chalky look. And I'm going to use that for my hair this time. And I'm just using a flat brush for this, for the hair. And you might pick up some of the black, because the Stabilo oil pencil is water soluble, and my paintbrush was wet, so it smeared it, and that's okay, because I can fix that later. It's not a big deal. Okay, so for the bottom lip, I'm going to use the same color paint for her bottom lip. I like doing like these circles. They kind of look like highlights on the lips, and then you come back in and you go back over it with the pink Posca pen. Kind of adds a little more depth to the face. Now this is where I'm going to wet it a little bit. The Portfolio Oil Pastel, because I want to kind of cover up some of this white for the highlight. It's too pronounced. So what you do is you just come in and kind of cover it up a little bit with a little color from the oil pastel. And then you just let that dry, okay? And then I'll come in and redo the, keep adding some more layers to the face here. So now that I'm going to dry this off, and then I'll be back in a minute. And sometimes I'm not liking the blush that I put on my girls, so sometimes I'll come back in with some of the skin tone face and blend it better. Kind of gives her a softer look. So I've got some colored pencils, and I'm going to go ahead and outline my hair again a little bit here. So now I'm going to add the texture of her hair. Like the strands of her hair. And if you don't have really good pencils, Crayola crayon pencils work just, Crayola pencils work just as good. So sometimes I like to come in with like a purple pencil to outline the face a little more. Kind of adds a little interest to the face. And sometimes I add a little bit to the eyes as well. Then I come in with my Stabilo All, and I just start kind of re-outlining some areas that I might have lost while I was creating my face. Okay. And I'm taking my pencil again, and I'm just coming in to kind of redefine the hair a little bit. Because it's not as dark as the Stabilo All pencil will be. And now that I'm done with the face, I'm going to come in and I'm going to paint in her shirt. And I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use blue. I think I'll use blue. Okay, so there's that. Then I'm going to come in and just add some more marks in my background, and then we're going to do a little title somewhere on the page, and then we're going to call it a day for our first picture, portrait, our first cover for our journals. So then I'm going to come in and do some more marks here with a few of my things here. I'm going to do the same kind of dark color. I'm using an ultramarine blue paint. And I misplaced my palette. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and kind of roll the paint onto your foam stamps. And then depending on where you want to mark your stamps, find places to add the marks. Just in different spots. It doesn't have to look perfect. Okay, but something like that. See it? Okay, and I'll be back in a minute to wrap this whole thing up. So we're going to put a little title. I'm probably going to put it like right along here. And the way I do that is I'll go onto my computer, and in your Microsoft Word or whatever word processing program you have, go ahead and print out in a nice whatever font you want, you know, your title. And the title is going to be, for mine, is my art journey. All right, my art journaling journey. So if you want to use the same title, go right ahead. All right, and so I'll be back in a minute to show you my title and how I glue it on. All right, so I'm using some border scissors to cut out my title, and you can find these at Michael's. I did buy a whole huge set that I happened to find at Ross, of all places, if you know what Ross is. But it's kind of hit or miss finding stuff like this again at a different, you know, like at a discount fabric, you know, clothing store. That's where what Ross is, for those of you that might not know what that is. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to glue it here, I think. All right, so there you have it. And don't forget that, you know, this is, so for matte finish, I use this as a fixative. It's about $15 a can, so it's not cheap. So if you have a coupon for any of your big art stores, go ahead and, you know, use a coupon to get this with. If not, and you want to spray your piece right away, then use a can of hairspray. Now I recommend that you spray outside in a well-ventilated area, even with the hairspray, because if you have asthma like I do, it's better to be in a very well-ventilated area to do it at. And plus the fumes are really strong, so that's my my take on the whole thing. So I hope that you enjoyed our first lesson for our art journaling journey. And as you see, I went ahead and glued this on with my glue stick, and I actually printed this out on my computer. And so that's a great way if you don't have a label maker or you don't want to write it by hand. You can use your computer. If you have a printer, access to a printer, use one of your word processing programs that will print it out for you. So I hope that you enjoyed this project and that you'll come back next week for our next spread, our next page. All right? Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye, toodles. And don't forget to check out the Facebook group, Anneliese's Mixed Media Everything. I'll post a link down at the bottom in the description box below, because that is where all the files and things that I'll post as to like materials I've used, where to buy your materials, that kind of thing, and you know, links to the videos as well in case you don't, you know, you want to find them again. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.